On a warm evening in Trinidad, a small group gathers outside a corner shop with absolutely nothing planned at all.
Someone leans against a low wall, another sits on an overturned crate, a third stands with arms loosely crossed.
A coconut vendor nearby hacks open a fresh coconut with practiced ease, handing it over with a straw.
Music drifts faintly from a nearby radio, not loud enough to interrupt the easy back-and-forth conversation.
Nobody checks a watch. Nobody mentions leaving soon. The evening simply continues at its own unhurried pace.
More people wander over as the sky slowly turns orange, joining without needing an invitation or a reason.
Laughter breaks out over some small joke, quickly followed by someone else's exaggerated, playful reply. A plate of fried snacks gets passed around, everyone taking a small piece without asking who bought it. This isn't a party. There was no planning, no guest list, and certainly no formal starting time.
It's simply a normal Tuesday evening, unfolding exactly the way countless other evenings here quietly unfold.
Ask anyone standing at that corner what they're doing tonight, and you'll get the very same one-word answer. They'll say they're liming, and in Trinidad and Tobago, that single word explains absolutely everything happening here.
Liming isn't just casual slang for hanging out. It's a genuinely recognized, named cultural practice with its own rules.
To lime is to gather with friends purely to share food, conversation, and laughter with no other agenda at all.
There's no productivity goal here, no networking angle, no task quietly waiting to be accomplished once the talking ends. The complete absence of a plan is, somewhat strangely, the entire plan for the whole evening.
You can be liming on a beach, in someone's yard, outside a shop, or literally on a street corner.
The location barely matters. What matters is the unhurried gathering of people with time simply set aside.
A visitor might assume everyone here is doing nothing, and in a very real sense, that assumption is correct. But doing nothing together, on purpose, turns out to be a surprisingly deliberate and valued social skill.
Someone who's genuinely good at liming, who keeps the conversation easy and the mood light, earns real local respect.
Being called a good limer isn't an insult here. It's closer to a quiet compliment about your character.
So how exactly did an entire island culture come to organize itself around the value of unstructured togetherness? The word's exact origin isn't fully settled, and locals themselves enjoy debating a handful of competing theories. One story traces it to workers at an old limestone quarry, who would relax together after a long day's labor.
Another points to farmers who once sat and talked while waiting for lime treatment to soak properly into their fields.
A third theory ties it to craftsmen who pause between coats while lime washing the walls of a home. A fourth, more playful theory imagines people left out of a party gathering elsewhere, sourly sucking on limes together. Whichever version is true, the word eventually detached completely from its original meaning and became its own thing entirely.
To lime, today, simply means to gather easily with others, with time and conversation as the only real ingredients.
At the center of most limes sits a tradition called old talk, a loose, wandering, unhurried style of storytelling.
Stories get exaggerated, interrupted, and retold slightly differently each time, and nobody minds the inconsistency at all.
Alongside old talk runs picong, a playful, sharp-witted teasing between friends that's affectionate rather than genuinely unkind.
Being the target of good picong is oddly a sign that you truly belong within that particular circle of friends. Sometimes a steel pan drifts into earshot from somewhere nearby, its bright metallic notes blending into the evening air.
A proper lime often includes food, though nothing fancy. Fried snacks, doubles, roasted corn, whatever is close at hand. Doubles, a popular curried chickpea snack wrapped in fried flatbread, shows up at an enormous number of limes. Nobody needs a formal invitation to join. Seeing familiar faces gathered somewhere is invitation enough on its own. A lime can start with just two people talking on a step and quietly grow as others simply wander by.
There's an unspoken etiquette to it all. Don't rush the conversation, and don't bury yourself entirely in your phone.
A lime needs no reservation, no dress code, and no RSVP of any kind. Simply showing up is already enough. Even a short lime, Just 20 unhurried minutes on a familiar corner still fully counts as a real proper lime. There's no single wrong way to lime as long as everyone involved is genuinely present and in no particular hurry. If you happen to have snacks or a cold drink, sharing them with the group is simply expected, not requested. Hours can pass during a good lime without a single person really noticing how much time has actually gone by. Because there's no formal schedule, a lime often functions as a kind of informal community information network too. News, gossip, advice, and small warnings about the week ahead all circulate naturally through casual, unhurried conversation. Block lime happens right on a familiar street corner, the same spot used again and again by regulars. Beach lime spreads out across warm sand, often stretching from afternoon straight through into a glowing sunset. Fête de Lime happens around a bigger celebration, folding the same relaxed spirit into a much livelier occasion. Even during the busy carnival season, when the whole island buzzes with music, the humble lime never really disappears.
If anything, carnival season simply multiplies the number of limes happening on any given evening across the islands.
Children grow up learning how to lime simply by being brought along to their parents' own gatherings early on.
Nobody sits a child down and formally explains liming. They absorb the rhythm of it purely by watching and joining in. During difficult economic stretches, liming has quietly endured, because unlike most leisure activities, it costs almost nothing at all. All it really requires is time, a bit of company, and somewhere comfortable enough to stand or sit for a while. That affordability is part of why the custom has survived so consistently across very different generations and circumstances. A good lime doesn't need decorations, doesn't need a theme, and definitely doesn't need much advanced planning at all. It only needs people willing to show up, slow down, and actually stay present in the conversation for a while. In a culture that values liming this highly, being constantly rushed or visibly distracted is seen as a bit odd.
Slowing down here isn't laziness. It's treated as its own small, quietly respected social skill worth practicing.
Visitors sometimes need a little time to adjust to a pace of gathering with genuinely no set agenda at all. Once they do adjust, many say it's one of the most memorable parts of spending time on the islands. There's something almost radical in a busier world about an entire evening built around having nowhere else to be. Step into a modern Trinidadian city today, and phones and busy schedules have undeniably changed how people connect.
Even so, locals seem to protect the lime deliberately, treating unhurried time together as something worth actively defending.
Trinidadians living abroad often recreate the tradition wherever they land, turning a garage or backyard into a familiar lime spot.
For many in the diaspora, a good lime abroad can feel like the closest thing to a short visit home.
Ironically, social media groups and group chats are now often used to quietly organize exactly when and where a lime will happen. Technology, in that sense, gets used to protect an unplugged, unhurried tradition rather than to quietly replace it. Busy young professionals still make real time for an after-work lime, even on the most hectic and demanding weeks. Some cafes and bars have even borrowed the word commercially, naming themselves some version of the lime spot.
Despite all of that borrowed branding, the real original version of liming still happens for free, on any ordinary corner.
Tourists visiting Trinidad and Tobago are frequently invited to come lime, which locals consider a genuine, warm welcome. Accepting that invitation and simply sitting down without a plan has quietly become its own small travel lesson.
Despite every visible change happening around it, the basic shape of a lime has barely shifted in generations.
People still gather, snacks still get shared, stories still stretch a little longer than they probably need to. What changes is the setting, sometimes the snacks, sometimes the music. What stays constant is the unhurried gathering itself.
A word born from a handful of competing, half-remembered origin stories became one of the island's most treasured habits.
Step back far enough, and liming stops being about any particular corner, beach, or borrowed word at all.
It's about carving out real protected time purely for other people, with absolutely nothing else competing for attention. It's about treating unhurried conversation as something worth genuinely defending, not just something left over after everything else is done.
It's about being fully present somewhere, rather than simply passing through it on the way to somewhere else.
Somewhere in Trinidad tonight, a small group is gathering again on a familiar corner with no particular plan at all. Someone will crack open a coconut. Someone else will start a story that probably isn't entirely accurate.
Nobody there will be checking the time, and that, more than anything, is the whole quiet point of it all. You don't need a special occasion to understand what a lime is actually offering to everyone involved. It's offering simple, unhurried company with no hidden agenda and absolutely nowhere else anyone needs to be. Most places in the world will happily schedule an event. Fewer will protect an evening with no schedule at all. That small, deliberate looseness might be the most generous part of the whole tradition, more than any single dish or drink. A word with a fuzzy, half-remembered origin became a daily lesson in simply making time for other people. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Not the coconut, not the snacks, but the patience of staying a while. Wherever this curious fox happens to travel next, this particular lesson is one worth carrying along for the journey. Connection doesn't always need a grand event to happen. Sometimes it just needs a corner and an open evening. So the very next time someone invites you to simply come and sit a while, consider actually staying. Because somewhere tonight, on a warm corner under a fading orange sky, someone is still liming, exactly like always.